The rain had finally stopped, but the sidewalk still shimmered beneath the afternoon sun, reflecting a city that hurried past people it no longer seemed to notice. Cars rolled by, strangers stared at their phones, and life continued as if every person standing on those streets carried the same story. But sometimes, a single question asked at exactly the right moment becomes the dividing line between two completely different futures. I never imagined that 5 simple words would change everything I believed about loneliness, hope, forgiveness, and family. I only meant to be polite. I never expected the answer to stay with me forever. If stories about compassion, second chances, and the quiet power of kindness resonate with you, I hope you'll stay until the very end and share what this story means to you. My name is Rowan Mercer, and at 36 years old, I had become an expert at living alone. After losing both of my parents within 3 years and watching a long relationship quietly dissolve under the weight of grief, my life had settled into a routine that felt safe but painfully empty. I worked as a furniture restorer, spending my days breathing new life into old tables, broken chairs, and forgotten cabinets. Somehow, repairing would have become easier than repairing my own heart. Every weekday followed the same rhythm. I opened my small workshop just after sunrise, worked through the afternoon, stopped for coffee at the neighborhood bakery, and walked home carrying leftovers I rarely finished. The silence inside my apartment had become so familiar that even the ticking clock sounded comforting. That Tuesday afternoon seemed no different. The bakery was unusually busy. Office workers filled every table while parents chased laughing children toward the nearby park. The smell of fresh bread drifted through the warm air, reminding everyone that simple pleasures still existed. As I stepped outside with a paper bag tucked beneath my arm, I noticed someone sitting quietly on the bench across the street. She looked to be in her early 20s. Her clothes were clean but worn from weeks of use. A faded backpack rested beside her feet, and she held a small notebook tightly against her chest as if it were the only thing she owned that still mattered. What struck me most wasn't her appearance. It was the expression on her face. She wasn't crying. She wasn't asking anyone for help. She simply watched people pass by with the exhausted look of someone who had already been told no too many times. I crossed the street without thinking. As I reached the bench, I hesitated. Countless thoughts rushed through my mind. Maybe she was waiting for someone. Maybe she would think I was being intrusive. Maybe I should simply keep walking like everyone else had. Instead, I heard myself ask the question. Do you have anywhere to go? She looked up slowly. For a long moment, she didn't answer. Her tired eyes searched my face as if trying to decide whether honesty was dangerous. Then she quietly admitted that she didn't. There was no dramatic pause. No tears. Just a simple truth spoken by someone who no longer had the energy to hide it. She explained that her name was Mara Ellison. She had aged out of the foster care system months earlier. She had found temporary work cleaning offices, but when the company closed, so did the tiny room she had been renting. Friends disappeared. Phone calls stopped being returned. Every day became a search for somewhere safe to spend the night without attracting attention. She wasn't asking for money. She wasn't asking for sympathy. She was simply tired. I offered to buy her dinner. She accepted with visible hesitation, insisting she could pay me back someday. We walked to a small family diner only a few blocks away. The waitress smiled warmly as she served steaming bowls of soup and fresh sandwiches. Mara ate slowly at first, almost apologetically, before hunger finally overcame embarrassment. Between careful bites, pieces of her life emerged. She loved drawing old buildings because they reminded her that broken things could survive for generations. She dreamed of studying architecture one day, even though college seemed impossible. She carried every important document she owned inside the notebook because losing them would mean starting over completely. When she laughed for the first time, it caught me completely off guard. It sounded like someone remembering who they used to be. As evening approached, the uncomfortable question returned. Where would she sleep tonight? She shrugged gently. She had stopped planning further than one day ahead because hope hurt too much when tomorrow kept disappointing her. The thought followed me all the way home. Inside my apartment, I heated dinner but couldn't eat it. Every room suddenly felt larger than before. My spare bedroom had remained untouched since my father passed away. The bed was made. The closet was empty. Dust had settled where memories used to live. I spent nearly an hour staring at that room. Finally, I picked up my keys again. Mara was still sitting on the same bench. When she saw me return, surprise spread across her face. I explained that the room wasn't luxurious, and I wasn't making promises about the future. But she deserved a safe place to sleep without fear. For several seconds, neither of us spoke. Then she quietly whispered the words that would stay with me forever. No one's ever come back. Those 5 words carried years of disappointment. People had promised. People had smiled. People had walked away. But nobody had returned. That evening changed the direction of both our lives. The first weeks weren't easy. Trust doesn't appear overnight. Mara insisted on helping clean the apartment. She cooked simple meals whenever groceries allowed. Every morning she searched for jobs before sunrise and returned with polite rejection after polite rejection. Still, she never stopped trying. One afternoon she wandered into my workshop. Without saying much, she picked up a small piece of sandpaper and carefully began smoothing the rough edge of an antique chair. Her movements were patient. Precise. Natural. Within days she had become genuinely interested in restoration. I taught her how different woods behaved, how tiny cracks could be repaired instead of replaced, and why preserving history mattered. She absorbed every lesson like someone discovering a language they had always wanted to speak. Customers began noticing the difference. Our little workshop slowly became busier than ever before. Months passed. Mara saved every paycheck she earned. Eventually she enrolled in evening classes at the local community college, taking one course at a time while continuing to work during the day. Watching her carry textbooks into the apartment each night reminded me that dreams don't disappear simply because life becomes difficult. Sometimes they only wait for someone to believe they're still possible. She also changed me in ways I never expected. The apartment no longer echoed with silence. We celebrated birthdays that neither of us had planned to celebrate. Sunday breakfasts became a tradition. Laughter returned to rooms that had forgotten its sound. For the first time in years, I looked forward to tomorrow. 3 years later, our workshop expanded into the vacant building next door. Mara designed the renovation herself. The same young woman who once believed she had nowhere to go was now creating spaces where forgotten furniture, and forgotten people, could begin again. She later started a community program offering free restoration classes to teenagers leaving foster care, helping them develop practical skills while reminding them that their past did not define their future. Watching those young people discover confidence through their own hands became one of the greatest privileges of my life. One afternoon, a nervous teenager walked into the workshop carrying nothing except a backpack. The sight stopped both of us. Mara quietly walked over, smiled gently, and asked the exact question that had once changed everything. "Do you have anywhere to go?" This time, hope answered before fear could. Years have passed since that rainy afternoon outside the bakery. People often tell me I saved Mara's life. They're wrong. The truth is much simpler. Kindness is rarely a one-way gift. I offered someone a room. She gave me a family. I offered someone a meal. She restored purpose to a man who believed his own story had already ended. I asked one ordinary question. Her honest answer transformed 2 broken lives into one shared future. If this story touched your heart, I'd love to hear what message you took away from it or whether you've ever witnessed a small act of kindness change someone's life.